Well, hello everybody. Here I am again on a Friday LinkedIn Live on topics related with recovering your mojo after um, psychological abuse or toxic relationship. But today we have a topic that is applicable to people, whether you have been in a psychologically abusive relationship or not, because the topic of money and financial well-being, I think, is applicable to everybody. And here I have Sloan Wilkins all the way from Australia. So it's 9:30 p.m. for him. So that's dedication. And he's my own financial coach. And I'm so happy to say that he has helped me so much. Hello, Sloan.
Hello, it's great to be here. Wonderful to be spending Friday night with you.
Exactly. That's a lot of dedication, and we are happy to have you here with that wonderful Australian accent that I'm sure resonates with the European audience and people from all over the world. So, Sloan, one of the things that from the beginning caught my attention from your background is that I thought it was a very interesting background to be 30 years in financial services and banking, now being an executive financial coach, and also your Buddhist practices and toolkits for being involved in your in a Buddhist philosophy and way of life. And but because I have already seen some other speakers like the Monisen, the Japanese Monisen guy, and all that. I knew kind of that combination, but how do you explain to people the combination of the Buddhist practices and rituals and way of life with dealing with money? What is the connection?
I think it's really intertwined because we don't live our life in one stream. We're holistic beings, so it's really difficult, I think, to separate the physical and the mental and the spiritual as well as the financial. So they're all elements of who we are, but there's so many components for me that started to become more intertwined with the way I talked about money and what I wanted to achieve from it when I started following Buddhist teachings, and that became a big part of my life, which is about 10 years ago now that I started to learn to meditate. And that was the start of my journey. It was previously, I guess, professional development, Marine one, and then it moved into more of the spiritual side because I, like so many people, hit that point in my career where you realize, well, I'm getting close to achieving the levels I wanted to achieve, and I ultimately got there. But I knew a few years before that it really wasn't ticking all the boxes for me, and it wasn't making me happy the way that I thought it would. And so then, of course, that leads to a lot of questioning. Well, what's this all about, and how might I find meaning and fulfillment, etc. So I hit that point, I suppose, where I moved beyond ambition and more into meaning. And I think it's quite a common thing to hit in your 40s, and certainly that was the experience for me. But back to your question, mindfulness is a big thing that we hear a lot about these days. Obviously, it has its roots in Buddhism, and it's all about being aware of what we're doing and being intentional. And so being on purpose and being intentional, that's two things that I talk about quite regularly with my clients and their finances. We can all make lots of decisions. We've all got lots coming at us from our life. However, it's important that we happen to our life and we happen to our finances rather than the other way around with life and finances just coming at us and we sort of reacting and deflecting and not
Yeah,
really making on purpose decisions. So that's the big connection for me,
yeah.
I think.
That is so important. You said it so well. That's such an insight to that you happen to your finances, that you happen to your life, that you put your intention, you look up for your goals instead of being reacting. Here in
Yes.
Europe, football is very strong. Now we are now preparing for the Euro Cup, and a team that will play on the defense will
Yes.
not go very far. So we want to be on the offensive
True.
happening to our life. And that takes me to one of the
Mm.
questions that I have prepared for you, that a lot of people think about financial wealth, but now as financial in the term well-being is becoming more mainstream. There is this
Yes.
term financial well-being. And I think that for my audience that are coming out of a toxic relationship, in a situation in which they have a lot of brain fog, they feel very bad with themselves, they are looking for well-being in all
Mm.
the aspects of their lives: physical, social, spiritual, and financial well-being. I think it's going to be very important for my audience and for all audiences. How would you differentiate financial wealth and financial well-being?
Yeah, look, great question, and it's a really important distinction, and they are different from each other. I guess in the work that I do with clients, I can help anyone pile up more cash, and that's a great outcome. However, it doesn't mean anything unless it's considered in the context of our life and what matters to us. So those what I call most important goals. That's that's when money starts to mean something, because it allows us to have options and different ways of choosing to live our life, because we have financial room to maneuver. So,
Yeah.
when we have, and another way of describing that would be freedom. It may not be ultimate freedom to stop work, and many of us don't want to do that. We get a lot of satisfaction from what we do.
Yeah.
So it's living a financial well-being allows us to live a more full life, a more
Yeah.
meaningful life, whatever that looks like for us. Whereas financial wealth is simply numbers in a bank account or accumulated assets. Nothing wrong with that. However, I definitely know in my wealth management career back in the corporate world, met quite a number of people who were, multimillionaires, but they didn't have a lot of satisfaction in their life. Often they'd exchange the accumulation of wealth for often their health, sometimes their personal relationships, and even the connection with their family. A lot of that had been lost or exchanged. And again, I'm not sure that they actually made that deal, but that was the end result. So just we need to be a little bit careful about the trade-offs that we're making in our life, and again, being on purpose and intentional about what we're trying to do. We need enough to be comfortable in the well-being space, and then we need to start asking ourselves the question about what is enough, and what do I truly want from my life in terms of satisfaction and engagement and giving to others. So yeah, such a deep area to dive into, and it's different for everyone. There's no one right answer, but there's plenty of wrong answers, and we
Yeah.
are sometimes quite clear on what we want to move away
Yeah.
from.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I love it that your approach is so holistic, because definitely in any moment of life, especially when we're getting out of a situation that has gotten us a little bit diminished, and we are trying to get back to having those levels of well-being, it is so important to have the finances to be able to improve our health, improve our social life. All that costs money. Improve our spiritual life. Hey, meditation retreat costs money. Hey, physical health, gym membership, more supplements, a very expensive watch, so you get all the sleep cycles. All that costs a lot of money. So I can see where, if you have all those goals, if you have a lot of clarity of whether you want to improve your health, your social life, your spiritual life, that your financial life will be very, very important. And another thing that I see in everybody, whether they have gotten out of an abusive relationship and are trying to recover their mojo or not, is a lot of fear and
Yes.
anxiety around something so simple as looking at your bank account or setting up a budget. It gives such a level of anxiety to some people, that, including me, that you have helped me a lot in reducing my flight or fight or freeze response.
Yes.
And so I would love for you to share some of the tips that people can start using to reduce that primitive brain, and why there is so much fear associated with money.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of emotions swirling around money, and fear is only one of them, although it's a really powerful one. There can often be blame and shame as well, and guilt. So I guess it's really interesting because it's so measurable.
Yeah,
You know, we can see the metrics in our bank account, and sometimes in the house that we live in and where we drive. It's why we have that the competitive consumerism and keeping up with the Joneses,
yeah,
because it's really obvious. I would argue definitely it's who we are inside that's more important than all those things. We need to be comfortable, but again, there's levels of comfort and levels of luxury goods sometimes that can drag us down the wrong path. But to really answer that question, it's important to think about where we're going and what we're trying to achieve with that. So
yeah. Because
I
if
always,
I may interrupt you just a moment, this keeping up with
yep,
the Jones, this
mm,
keeping up with the Jones could produce so much anxiety,
yep,
so much anxiety, because you're like, oh my God, they just bought a new electric car. Oh my God, they just got a new house. Um, what perhaps practices from Buddhism could help us to achieve a little bit more peace with that societal pressure?
yeah. Look, a really good one is the concept of impermanence, because all all things come into being, all conditioned things anyway. All things come into being. They exist for a while, and then they cease to exist. Whether we're talking about, on a grand scale, our own lives, but that's true for us. It's true for everything around us. It's true for the breath that we're taking now. It starts, it is, and then it goes. Um, and if you apply that, a really obvious one is a motor vehicle. If you have a look around the city as you're driving in the next couple of days, you might see an older BMW or Mercedes being driven. And yes, some of them are classic, but some of them are just older cars. At some stage, that was brand new, and it was the top level vehicle that was available. And I'm sure someone coveted it and, really saw it as a status symbol. Now it's a 10, 15-year-old vehicle. Nothing wrong with having a vehicle that old. However, it is no longer the shiny new version. And some people get into that habit of having to turn it over every 1 or 2 years and get the latest model. Same with our iPhones. I've got one that's quite old. I only just upgraded from one that didn't have the button on it anymore. But we that's so true of everything that we bring into our lives, certainly from a material sense, is new and attractive, and then it ultimately becomes a source of dissatisfaction when something new emerges, and we feel like we have to have the new and the latest thing, and therefore the one that we do have, we get disappointed in it, and it feels like, oh, I'm not enough anymore, or I need the new thing. So there, that concept of impermanence.
Impermanence, and that, that
Yeah.
that those material things, I was also that to meditate in impermanence will be so useful. Thank you for that
Mm.
reminder, because ultimately those material things and being the latest model or whatever is going to give us a very temporal satisfaction. And I was
Yes.
I was listening the other day to a neuroscientist who was talking about that is dopamine, that is
Hmm.
dopamine, and that's fleeting, and the dopamine hit is going to require another dopamine hit, and it's going to
Yeah.
require something more and more and more and more. But if we're looking for happiness, we're looking for serotonin, which is produced in connection with people, is produced in volunteering activities, in contributing, in helping others, and that
Yes.
is a different hormone that it lasts longer, and it doesn't give
Mm.
us that, it's not addictive, it doesn't produce that need for more and more and more and more. So I think that neuroscientist explained it better than me, but it gave me that reminder that looking for those material things, it just gives you a very temporary satisfaction, but a very permanent dent in your finances.
Yeah, absolutely. In several different ways as well.
Yeah.
It can be simply just we're overspending, therefore we're not accumulating, or worse, it could be that we're actually going into various forms of debt and having loans to finance this lifestyle that apparently is trying to communicate something to the broader world, but often doesn't make us particularly satisfied.
No, no, it's very, very temporal. Look, so it's very interesting where this is taking us. I would like to come back to something that could be very is considered very small, but for many people is very important. That is the anxiety in looking at your bank account.
Yeah.
Where is that coming from?
I think it's coming from a fear that it's going to be worse than we might imagine, or in
Uh-huh.
some cases, confirm that it's exactly as bad as we imagined. But
Yeah.
both of those two things are well worth finding out. And I've got this little concept called the money monster, and where that comes from is thinking about a scary movie, not necessarily a horror movie, but they're true of that as well. But when you're thinking about some unknown thing, it is more scary than understanding in detail what the situation is. So in those movies, you never see the scary monster at the start of the movie. You only see the whole monster at the end. And they might show you at the start maybe the shadow, or you hear the growl, or you might be sort of part of its tail or a claw, not the whole thing. Because if you saw the whole thing in one picture up front, you'd just be like, oh, okay, it's not that big a deal. It's the worry and that anxiety that actually means that gets us going in the film concept there. And it's so true of our finances. So we can use that in reverse. When we actually can get ourselves to start looking and examine things, we find out, okay, most of the time it's not as bad as I thought. So looking at our transactions or listing down our debts from smallest to largest so that we know what they're like and we can start chipping our way through them, it ends up being a little bit more comfortable for us to do that.
Yeah, that is so right, and you have helped me a lot with that. So
Yeah.
now I can look at my spendings. I use an app called Spendy. There are other people
Yep.
that use other things, but YNAB is another one that it has allowed me to have a better financial picture and a lot of happy colors, a lot of
Yep.
pinks and reds and greens and orange. It can give you a sense of, it's not that scary. And then
Yeah.
once it happens to me, it happens a lot of people that I know, that once I'm into it, it's like, let's do more, let's compare with last year, let's compare with last month, let's do some
Yep.
budgets. But it's just like definitely that anxiety of before you even see the monster, the supposed
Exactly.
monster.
And we find that with just about any task in our life, like the
Yeah.
enthusiasm or the energy for a task typically arrives after we start it, not before. So if we're sitting around waiting for motivation to hit us, it often doesn't arrive. That just doesn't work. We just need to take that first step, and the journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step, from Taoism. So it's really important that we get started, and then we do find, oh, okay, it's okay.
That takes me, that is such a good point, that that journey start with one step, and that takes me to another source of a lot of anxiety for people, and also after they separate or divorce, is that they look at their investments accounts or their retirement accounts, and they have certain age, and it's like, oh my god, I had not started, or I am not where I was supposed to be. Well, am I going to have to work until I'm 100 years old, or what how am I going to get there? So I think that philosophy probably applies to that, on taking those steps. What will be your recommendation for people that have a lot of anxiety in terms of investing and creating retirement accounts?
Yeah, look, again, we need to be careful about, well, sorry, I'll rephrase that. We need to be kind to ourselves first and foremost.
Kind to ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, extend some of that kindness and compassion towards ourselves. we don't need to be investment gurus to make real progress with our money. And that's the first thing. I'm always saying, let's focus on progress over perfection. Anytime we expect perfection from ourselves or others, we're bound to be disappointed. So it's not a good expectation to actually have. So when it comes to thinking about how do we make ground with our retirement, and it's natural that we have a lot of worry about that because it's open ended. Who knows how long we're going to be around, and we don't want to run out of money. It's a very fearful thing. So acknowledging that is good. The reality is we can make the best decisions we can at the time, and if we continue to do that, we're going to be on a reasonable track. We might have 2020 hindsight, and we should all over ourselves. I should have done this, I should have done that.
Exactly.
Whether that's money or relationships or career or health choices, all of those things, we always second guess ourselves, but we tend to make the very best decisions we can at the time with the level of consciousness that we had available to us at that point. So we can't look back and harshly judge ourselves on before. So what do? We all start where we are today. So no matter how far behind we might think we are or how little we might feel that we know, we can always take action and build upon that. So what is the one next best action that I can take today? And so, it's useful. I use a framework with clients, which is applicable whether, at either end of the spectrum. I've got a 21-year-old client that's a single guy, and at the other end of the spectrum, I have clients that are, running major Fortune 500 companies. So but it's the same framework that I'm applying. The circumstances are radically different. However, it's good to have a framework and be able to sort of say, okay, well, here's what we might normally do, but then let's examine your personal circumstances. So I think we should also take from that, don't do too much comparing to other people.
Because the millionaire can also feel extreme anxiety because he or she thinks I should be here. So has this belief that I should have already $20 million and I only have 10 millions. Oh my God, I've done so bad. Or because their portfolio is broader and they have maybe some more risky stocks, and suddenly those risky stocks lose capital. So maybe also, so I totally get what you're saying, that the framework of being kind to yourself, which also comes from your Buddhist practices, kindness and compassion apply to everything, not to other people and animals and plants, but also to ourselves.
First to
Sometimes
ourselves,
we are so unkind with ourselves. We are so unkind with ourselves. It's unbelievable. I made all these wrong decisions in my life. I haven't done anything right. I just, completely destroy my credit. For example, somebody in the US will say, I destroy my credit. And I used to live in Houston. So they send you credit cards. When I was living in Houston, they pick up my social security number and they just send me credit cards because they knew I was working. And the credit that they were offering me was higher and higher. So it started with 1,000. And at the end of my 6-year stay in the US, I have companies offering me 25,000 to put $25,000 in a credit card. So what would you say about credit cards? I know they are dangerous. I got in trouble. I got out of it. Now I don't have a credit card. And because I know I can get in trouble. And that got me, that was a problem when I was recently in the US and I wanted to rent a car, but I had to pay extra. But probably that extra that I paid is worthy compared with the amount of trouble that I saved by not having a credit card over the years.
Oh yeah. And I can speak from someone who's made a lot of financial mistakes, particularly in my
oh my God, cannot even imagine.
That's why I got a lot of compassion for others out there who feel like they might have made a money mistake. And quite frankly, if you're over the age of 12, you've made a money mistake at some point. So yeah, totally. I got my first credit card when I was 18, and basically had them almost to the end of my 20s, and I'm so grateful that they're not in my life and haven't been for many years, because I do feel like, they're honestly financial cancer. And
Yeah.
full respect to anyone who has or has been suffering with cancer, or has a loved one that is running through that. So I don't mean to make light of that, but
No.
that's probably how serious that they are for our generation. At least the next generations coming through now, they've got other types of products. So the buy now, pay later type of products, payday lending, all those sort of things, they are just destroying people, destroying their finances, and destroying, probably more importantly, their belief in themselves and their capacity to make a change. They just feel trapped, and often they are, until they really hit that point where they're in so much physical, mental, and financial pain that it's like, that is it. I've had enough. It's time for a change.
Yeah.
So, if you're there, I've been there with you, and there's definitely a way out, and that's for sure. And there's good, better, and best approaches to digging yourself out of that problem, and definitely respecting our income, but also respecting yourself as well, because
Yeah, that is your approach is so different because of that Buddhist aspect of kindness and compassion, and it really shines through. And when you're coaching with me, it just shines through. It has helped me to be more kind with myself, because I was not, and to be more grateful for the things that I had done right over the years.
yep.
And also, a lot of people put a lot of labels on you. I remember some of my family members, I won't name who, was telling me that I was a spender. I was a spender. I was a spender. But then I wasn't really a super spender, but I'm somebody who have prioritized quality. So, for example, when I did an MBA, I did an MBA in a good university in London. So that was kind of the big expense in my life. But then other expenses on a day to day, I'm quite careful.
Mm,
So this is a topic that I was not prepared to ask you, but now I realize that I could ask you that how to deal with the labels that other people put us, because you have helped me through your analysis of my expenses and my savings. You have helped me understand that that is not part of my personality. I'm not actually a crazy spender at all. In fact, on a day to
mm,
day, I shop around. I even after I divorced, I shop around even for lawyer to get a
yep.
better deal, and I got a better deal, and I saved like 20,000 euros. Um, so, but when the time come to do something that is quality, that is going to last a long time, I choose quality. So,
Mm,
how do we deal with those labels that can be so hurtful, and it can actually distort our financial life by, because then we don't focus on the right thing. I mean, you have helped me understand that I need to focus more on income than on spending.
yep.
But if I would have been just so concerned with I am a spender, I will be all day focusing on my cost.
Mm. Yeah, look, really good conversation, and
Yeah,
there's a couple of different angles to that. One, yeah, it's worth being aware of how we're viewed by others. However, we need to sometimes take that with a grain of salt,
yeah,
and just really rely on our own assessment of, am I a good person? Am I doing the things that I believe are in line with my values and my integrity? And if so, you can be fairly comfortable that you're doing the right thing. What other, I can't remember where it comes from, but that famous saying, other people's opinions of me are none of my business.
Byron
um,
Katie. Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah, so it's brilliant stuff. I really like that. And it's easy to say, much harder to live, but that doesn't mean that we
but
should
can you say that again?
easy to say, much
Ah,
harder to live,
to live,
um,
exactly.
in that
Yeah,
mindset. But labels are just that. I think we always do it because it allows us to simplify the world at large. And if someone's giving us a label, well, they're either coming from a place that's harsh, in which case we can probably dispense with that. They've got their own things going on,
yeah,
and what a horrible place for them to be coming from. Or they may be trying to help us in some misconstrued way. They want to set us right and help us based on their world vision. So that is either coming from a place that's very unhelpful or trying to be helpful. Either way, I guess we can wish them well in our mind, but focus on who we want to be. And it also, for me, lines up with the another Buddhist concept, which is the concept of no self. It doesn't mean that we don't exist, and it doesn't mean that we don't have a soul or whatever. It's more so coming from the place that we have this mind-created personality or view of ourselves. So if that's true, we can also.
How do you call it? How do you call it? Sorry.
A mind-created personality view of ourselves.
Yeah.
So we form these opinions and beliefs about ourselves.
Yeah.
So if that's true, we can certainly craft those to be more positive and supportive and less harsh and judging of our own self.
Yeah, absolutely. I use my own framework for that. Is I call it upgrade your being. So it's you have your own being, but if you know the characters that the part of your character that you want to promote or you want to encourage, you can live in that space. But as you said, the personality, we can be taking a lot of things, a lot of unhelpful things that have been told, that we have been told over the years, or we can say, look, I'm just going to make my own decisions about who I am. And what has helped me as well is to put everything in Excel. It's like, am I really a spender? Am I really, what is my issue? Is it spending, is saving, is income, or is managing, or what is it? So kind of seeing things in a very analytical way. It's as opposed as just being in my mind of what is my money picture. You have really helped me into being more analytical. And I have some questions here as well, because in your practice you talk a lot about goals, and that's certainly when people come out of abusive or toxic relationships, their goals are now completely different. And it could be really, what will be the kind of the basic steps that people need to take to align their finances with their goals? And if you want to share some slides, we can do that.
I probably will on this particular one in just a second, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Definitely it's true for people who are coming out of a relationship, whether that's by mutual agreement or they're freeing themselves from quite a difficult and challenging situation, or sometimes we reach that point in reimagining our life after a big career decision, sometimes one we make, sometimes one that's forced upon us. So we all reach that point at some stage of reevaluation and review, and it can be really difficult, particularly if something's happened suddenly or it's a big shock and a big change for us to like, I've got no idea what my goals are. So that's not unusual for me to come on in contact with that with my clients. So I actually use a framework which is based on another one, but I've adapted it for my own purposes. So maybe if we can quickly put that on screen, I'll
yeah. Can you do that, or should I do it?
Let me see if I can. We have
You
the technology
in the center. If you at the center of this slide, if you hover a little bit, it says add to a stage.
Move from stage. No.
Oh, then I can do it for you. There you go.
There we are. But I cannot move it.
Okay. Well, in that case, let me try and do this. Can you move them now?
I can.
All right.
Now, this little guy here is really quite, and I'm not sure if everyone can read that, but I'll read it out anyway. But it's a key life areas model, and we sometimes see the wheel of life, which is a model that's out there, which examines how important a certain area is and how much progress you feel you're making in that area. This is a little different from that, although the areas are quite similar. So only one of them is to do with finances, actually, or overtly, and that's financial well-being. But there's others in there, such as health and vitality, career and calling, family and friends, home and lifestyle, heart and spirit, and then purpose, principles, values, and vision. So, there's 7 key areas there, and most things that we could think up in our life fit into one of these categories. So it's really useful, in the way that I use this is in conversation with people, to have them pick one area and we deep dive into that particular area in a discussion. And it's not about extracting financial goals at all, although that happens. It's more so, what does this area mean to you? Like, if you had to describe it to someone else, how would you define this area? And what things might be important to you within it? I've been talking about health. Do I want to run a marathon? Do I want to lose weight and get fit and start doing weights so that I work on my bone density? All of those different things. Do I want to be regularly doing yoga? And I'm interested in connecting to the spiritual side of yoga as well as the physical practice there. And so that gives us lots of different things to think about. It's not only just ourselves, but our partner, if we have one, and if we've got young people in our lives, or even people in the older generation that we're taking care of, what's going on for them that might be part of our goals there. So as we talk about each one of these areas, it's a really good way of bringing some important goals to the surface. And we can't do everything. So we can't do everything at once, but we can certainly focus on a couple of these areas. If there's only one of these areas that you could work on, which one would it be? And within the goals within that area, which one would you pick as your top 1 or 2 goals? So let's do those things. So it's a great way to start. Goals can feel really nebulous and like they're all over the place. So how do we start to pull down a few and really put some process, and which doesn't sound like a lot of fun, but it actually is, because structure liberates. It allows us to be able to make meaningful steps towards the things that we have defined ourselves as being important. So
no, I find this extremely useful, especially for for any changes, but in my line of work, Recover Your Mojo, is that imagine how much mojo you can recover if you have your purpose, your goals in terms of your vision, and you are active and vital in your health and in your spirit, and then you have your career and you have your financial well-being, and your home is a beautiful place where you can rest, and your family and friends, you are connected. So I think that this is absolutely perfect. This is what the doctor order when you are getting out of a toxic relationship, something like that. But as you said, it could be for anybody who wants to bring more balance into their life and more well-being into their life. And what steps should people take if, for example, they have gotten out of a relationship, and you know how sometimes couples separate things. You take care of this and I take care of the finances, and then somebody has come out of this relationship and she or he has never been involved with the finances. And then suddenly maybe they have some alimony, or they have something that they can continue living, but they had no idea. They had never managed a budget. It is more common that it seems, unfortunately, especially for women that have somehow outsourced their financial life to a man, and then something happened, and then they are like, wow, now what?
Yeah.
And I believe that everybody has the capacity to deal with their finances, and especially if they find somebody like you, so compassionate, so they don't spend like a year beating themselves up. And why will I have outsourced my finances to him? Beating themselves up. So if you find somebody like you that help them to see the situation with some compassion, they could start taking some steps. How would you advise somebody like that to even get started if they had never managed their money, they never invested, they never saved? things like that.
Yeah.
And they have
Look,
maybe a settlement, for example. So now what?
okay. Yeah, look, a great question. Then there's a couple of things there. The first is sharing a little bit of hope. And the reality is that everyone can learn to manage their money well. And when we do, we tend to have much less financial stress and over time, actually more money. It is actually a learned skill. So, we were talking before about the spender and the saver and etc. They're sort of actually useful in some ways, not so much as a label, but to understand certain things and tendencies. However, everyone can take on the skills or start to embed the skills about how to manage money well. And the interesting thing with personal finance is around about 80% of the success that we'll ultimately achieve is going to be dictated by our habits and behaviors, not how much we know, not being an investment guru or a financial, having a finance degree. That's interesting and it's useful, but that's only about 20% at best. It comes
That
down
gives me
really to,
hope.
yeah.
Habits and behaviors. Habits and
Mm-hmm.
behaviors is 80% of how well you do in your financial well-being.
Yeah.
And wow, that really gives me hope. And what will be some of those habits and behaviors?
Well, some of them are a bit scary, but the
Go
first
for
one
it.
is
Go
that
for it. Just go for it.
first
We
one is
want to
that
get better.
scary B word, budgeting. That
Budgeting.
is actually important, and I've started to transition to calling it a spending plan
A
because
spending plan. Okay.
yeah, that sounds like more fun. And I'm not actually against spending. And you talked about this before with you spend on quality things. I talk about high quality spending, not so much in the same way that you were referring to it, although what you were saying was good, but spending that's linked to our most important goals. That's good quality, high quality spending. Random spending just because we got a Facebook ad or an email with a fantastic sale that's happening. That's typically low quality spending
I
because it's
love that
less.
distinction. I love that
Yeah.
distinction because we are bombarded
Mhm.
with all type of offers.
Yeah. And that's step one to, in my language, being the boss of your money, which is actually about you telling your money what to do rather than it just wandering around. Every single dollar is like well, use whatever analogy you want. It's like a member of your workforce, and you're the CEO or the CFO, let's call it. You're the chief financial officer of your life, and all your dollars, every single dollar is a worker for you. Now, most of us have been in the corporate environment. If we didn't have a strategy, if we didn't have role definitions, if we didn't know what our targets were, and no one told us what time to show up or what to do or who to serve or how to serve our customers or clients, it would be absolute chaos.
Yeah.
Yet somehow we feel like if we apply that chaos mentality to our money, that things are going to work out. And of course they don't. So we need to have that purpose and intention with our money. Money is excellent at following orders. Um,
Oh, I love that.
however, we need to be the adults in the room and step up and provide those instructions. And the way that we do that is through a spending plan. So you can use an app, you can use a spreadsheet, you can use a back of a napkin. I'm really not fussed, but we should, before our money arrives, have a strategy for, okay, these dollars here, you go over there and do that job for me. And that job could be paying my rent or paying my mortgage. And these dollars, okay, you go over here and you're my savings team. Okay. And that's going to build my short, long-term and medium-term savings, and et cetera, et cetera. That's really what a spending plan is, or a budget is. It's you get to decide what it is. So rather than feeling squashed down or controlled, it's you exerting control over your own money. So that's so important. And it can be, particularly in the clients that you're serving, the start of them reclaiming or reasserting their empowerment over their money and their situation. So it's
That's a
really
great
quite
feeling.
powerful.
Yeah, that's a great feeling. Make you feel empowered, like you have
Yep,
your dollars or your euros or pounds over here. These are savings, these are investing, these are spent in my health, these are spent in my connection, because
yep,
everything is interesting for me for the new goals of my new life,
yeah.
and
And
I'm
when
feeling
we
in
line up
control.
that, yeah, exactly. And when we line up the day to day, month to month management of our income with and in service of those big goals that we started to formulate, you can see how all the areas of our life start to fall more into line, and we're continually making progress towards our most important goals, which typically define your version of your best life, what that might look like. So we're making incremental progress towards that, and
I love
I
it.
think that's really exciting. And you start to develop. I actually get really excited when I talk about spending plans, and I know I'm a massive money nerd. Someone's got to be, but it's exciting because for me, it's very much like, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Um, we have the safety of physiological needs, and then we have safety and security. And if we're in financial stress, some of that safety and security level is actually in threat, and therefore we feel like finances are right in our face, and it's hard to look beyond that towards up ultimately up to self-actualization if we're
Yeah,
stuck in that financial stress. So if we can start to deal with, and we don't need to solve it all straight away, we know as soon as we're on a pathway and know that, okay, this can take me where I want to go, we can progressively feel more financially confident and less financially stressed. And
yeah,
then that opens up the mind space for us to think, okay, well, who do I want to be? How do I want to help the world? Who do I want to serve? How do I want to show up as, a mum for my kids, or, a great dad for my kids? How do I want to volunteer and support the community? Um, and that's, I, for me, that's one of the most important aspects of getting our finances right, because we've all got amazing gifts that I think we're here to share with the world. But if we get stuck in that grind, and unfortunately in the financial system and capitalist system that we're in, you really can't escape that.
no.
So we need to learn how to do that so that we're able to be free to share the best version of our gifts with the world around us.
So important. And so, I can feel your passion and your enthusiasm. And even when you have been my coach for more than a year and still taking notes, high quality spending versus random spending. Money is excellent at taking orders, but we should be the adults in the room, and then we can create our own version of our best life. I cannot see a better way to recover your mojo than
Mm,
creating your own version of your best life and then working your financial well-being towards that. And again, yeah, you could be at some point stuck in the
yeah.
survival mode. Yeah, it could happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that when I understand you're saying, if you have the vision or where you're going and you're all excited, and then you can start taking some actions there. Some of those actions will not cost so much money.
Yeah.
Sometimes, just to take some time to go with friends to have a tea somewhere, it's not going to break the bank, but it's going to give
Mm,
you that social well-being. It's going to take you out of that survival mode, or just to
yeah.
go in nature and go through a park and go barefooted or hug a tree or something like that. Some of those things are free, and
Yeah.
it's going to get you out of that survival mechanism and ready for your next level. And let's
Yeah.
not underestimate the power of connection with friends and family and all these endorphins and serotonin that you put in your model, that
Mm,
not all those things cost money. So that takes
no.
me to another question that I just completely came up with. It was not in my list. What about the power of the the small things in life that don't cost a lot of money?
Yeah, look, I think that they're essential. And I'm often looking for both the financial goals, but the non financial goals as well, because they're equally as important. And the simplest things are often the most rewarding for us. And sometimes when everything seems chaotic, nothing actually feels better than to just sit, to be aware of the present moment and take a few deep breaths, which is some of the techniques that we might have been exposed to if we've been to a yoga class, or if we had a wellness type of person come into our business, etc. And there's a reason that those simple techniques work, because they're ultimately getting us out of our head, and focus just in on the now, where we're not slipping into concern and guilt and worry about what was, or anxiety about what might be coming up in the future there as well. We sort of bring back that time frame to now. So it's so powerful, and that doesn't cost anything. And those 1 or 2 moments of centering ourselves and being aware of where we are can get us, can bring that power together and ready us to take on whatever's coming next.
Wow, what a wonderful take on financial well-being. That definitely is not, what banks are all about, or financial institutions. This is a whole different level of dealing with finances, and the connection with finances, with life, with our brain, with our emotions, but ultimately with our actions. And from our actions, money flows.
Yep.
So
So true.
it's so
Yeah.
connected. It's so connected. Let's see what other questions I have, because I think they're pretty much, and I don't see a lot of people connected. I think that's because it's too late in Australia, it's too early in Europe, it's too early in America. But it doesn't matter, because I'm sure the people will be thrilled to watch
Watching on
this
replay,
on
maybe.
demand and put questions later, and then we will both answer those questions later on when we see them or LinkedIn comments. And the importance of income. I just wanted to touch a little
Yes.
bit on income, because most of the people that follow me and they follow you, many of them are entrepreneurs. They are also solopreneurs or small business owners. Of course, they are corporate people as well. But the importance of income in this picture, because you could be super great planning and your spending plan and your investment and everything, but at this point of our lives, income is super important. What do you think that are the elements that affect income, also that had to do with our mindset?
Yeah. Look, income is the raw material from which we build our desired future. And if we're giving too much of our income away, either in lifestyle spending, some is okay, too much is not. So too much lifestyle spending, or too much debt payments, particularly unproductive debt that holds us in place or holds us back, then it's almost impossible to thrive financially if that's what the ratio is. It's the same way if you look at a sporting team, and you were talking, so the European Cup's coming up, is it?
Yeah, Eurocup. Yeah.
Euro Cup. So the team that wins typically, but not always, typically is the one who has most of the possession.
Yeah.
And so it's the same thing with our income. If we allow most of the possession to be in the hands of the opposition, and the opposition in financial terms is too much lifestyle spending and too much debt, where we're literally paying someone else for, not for building our future, but for things that happened in our past, like a credit card. You think about that, that's all stuff that's already happened.
Really happens. Yeah.
Yeah, when we allow that possession to go
Yeah.
the wrong way, then we're probably going to lose in that scenario.
Yes,
So
I just realized that we had this before, and now I moved to this. Doesn't matter, just a different format.
Oh, yep.
Yeah. So what you're saying, I didn't. I was not thinking about income in that way, but yeah, in possessions of the income. So pretty much most of the income that you get to retain. And you said maybe savings and investment, a percentage, or at least a reasonable percentage, as opposed as lifestyle
Yep.
spending and debt. That is
And
a
of course,
fantastic way of putting it. And then when I was working in corporate, and yeah, I have a thing with clothes and shoes, especially because I
Mhm.
started working very, very, very young. And I was
Okay.
in Houston, and then you go to the shopping mall. People that see me that are from Houston, the Galleria, it's like the high, luxury shopping mall. So yeah, I made some bad decisions there. But even then, I was kind of sensible. I will buy
Yeah.
clothes, but I will not just destroy completely my budget. So I
Yeah.
think that yeah, that concept of possess more of your life, of your income, is very good. Now as an entrepreneur, I am more
Mm.
concerned with creating more income,
Building it. Yep.
building
Because
more
there's
income,
well,
creating with
it's there's
sales.
those two sides of the coin there, isn't it? We we often think that we need to, well, you can't shrink your way to growth, I suppose. So you can't slash and burn your expenses beyond a certain level, and even then, that's probably not sustainable. So it is very useful to think about the other side of that equation, which is, of course, our income. So there's really no limit to the amount of income that we might be able to generate, particularly in an entrepreneurial sense. But there is a limit to how much you can reduce your expenses. So it's great if we can think about how we build that. And of course, let's think about the mindset that's really useful for making quality decisions as well as moving forward with optimism. It's definitely not anxiety and worry and fear, is it? It's
No,
going to be the opposite of those things. We have a growth mindset. We can tap into the opportunities that we might see around us. It is turning up the voice of the cheerleader in our head and pressing mute on the voice of the inner tyrant that gives us a hard time and criticizes us. So all of those things there can start to get us in a progressively supportive mindset that's actually going to allow us to be creative, to understand the challenges of the people that we're trying to serve and how we might serve them well, and creating products and services that are really going to resonate in the market. So for entrepreneurs out there, I guess taking control over what's going on with their personal finances, I believe that actually supports and enables you to do very well with your entrepreneurial journey as well, because of the positive impact it has on your mindset.
totally. You explain it so well. I'm so glad this is recorded because I'm just going to go back to those last 2 minutes in which you were explaining that. I think that for me as an entrepreneur, for other people as entrepreneurs, that is such a good explanation of how that positive mindset is going to allow us to maintain that creativity. And of course, once we had the financial life kind of clear,
Yes.
so it's not a worry. So you know your budget, you know how much you're spending in both your business and your personal life. Then you don't have to be recreating the wheel and reinventing the
Yeah.
wheel every day, because that is something that happens automatically. Some of your money goes immediately every month automatically to your investment account or to your savings, and then you just focus on creating products and services for your audience. So
Yeah.
that that
It
that is,
frees up that mind space, I
it
think, doesn't it?
frees up that mind space. That's exactly the path. And thank you so much. I think that we are getting to the end
Oh, wow.
of the
That moved
webinar.
quickly.
Time just flew. People are not asking questions because I think that the timing maybe was not exactly right. But I think that a lot of people are going to come back and ask questions later on in the comments, because this is
Yes.
this is absolutely a hot topic that influences so many people. And thank you so much for touching the topic in all directions and for blending all the dimensions of well-being,
Mm.
because this is the ultimately, as you said, what we want to do is that we want to be serving others in with those products and services, whether we are entrepreneurs, and if we are in corporate, we want to be serving our clients and living a full life, a fulfilled
Mm.
life. And money can be an instrument for that, rather than
Yes.
something that is hindering and stressing us, and to be kind with
Absolutely.
ourselves is so fundamental. So I don't know if you want to say some final words.
Yeah, look, I just want to encourage any of your particular audience and the amazing people that you serve who are really reclaiming who they are and how they might want to represent themselves into the world and into their own lives again, that the financial component is definitely something they can solve, and probably it's going to come along with reasserting themselves in the business world or in the entrepreneurial space there as well. They sort of serve each other really nicely. And finally, as I said a little bit earlier, I don't think we need to solve all the challenges that we face. And if all we see is challenges, it can be really stressful. But I don't believe we need to solve all of those, either in the clients that I work with or the clients that you work with. But we can start to feel better straight away when we know, okay, there's a pathway here. There's something for me to follow. And that starts to feel pretty amazing pretty quickly. And we know that if we keep following the path, we're going to be checking off more and more of the items and living a richer life.
Exactly. Thank you so much for those words of hope. You're totally speaking my language, reclaiming, reasserting your place in the world, recovering that mojo, that zest for life, and that contribution. Thank you so much for this.
Thanks very much.
And we keep in contact. Until soon.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Thank you all.